I'm Matt Avery, and today I'm on the move in the deserts of Arizona, just outside of Phoenix, taking a look at some handcrafted tiny treasures before making my way into the mountains to find some rusty gold. Join me as I travel the country, uncovering history, the cars, and the roads worth taking. I hit the biggest events and museums, dig into legendary collections, and always take the scenic route, because every mile has a story. My first stop is to meet up with Ernie. Now, Ernie has spent decades honing his skill as a very talented metal worker, and what he builds are truly unique. Now, his family, Ginger and Kevin, run a museum celebrating his legacy. And judging from what I'm seeing around me, I must be getting close to his Dwarf Car Museum. Hey, Ginger.
Hello, Matt. Welcome to the Dwarf Car Museum.
Thanks. I've heard about this place for years, and I'm so excited to check it out.
Oh, I'm so glad you did come out. We have all of Ernie's wonderful handmade creations of his dwarf cars. I would love for you to walk around and see the museum.
Well, I have a lot to check out. I'm gonna go explore.
After wandering on my own and seeing so much rich history, I knew I had to hear the story from Ernie himself.
Ernie, I gotta say, your place is truly one of a kind. It seems like every corner there's a story, there's a piece of memorabilia that I'm sure has a history behind it, but I'd love to find out, where did all this come from, your love of cars and fabricating?
It's a long story. My mother bought our home place in 1944. I was 4 years old, and she bought a whole city block for $150, and the city dump was within a quarter mile from us. So I grew up next to a free department store. I got all the wagon parts, tricycle parts, and bicycle parts, and I put all the bicycle parts together, and my dad would take them to the auction, and I'd get $12, $15 out of them, and it didn't cost me anything. And then when I was about 15 years old, a train come by our house. I looked out the window, and there was an old refrigerator laying on its back in the weeds, and had a tire swing land by it. And what I saw was a miniature touring car with a black fender. So I built the first metal car out of refrigerators.
How long does it take you when you start a new project to put together one of these dwarf cars? How many hours are we talking about?
It takes right at 12,000 hours start to finish to build one.
Working with a smaller car doesn't save any time with the amount of hours you put into it. I mean, the amount of energy rivals that of some full-scale restorations.
Well, I never think about time when I'm building one. Time means nothing. It's just easy and fun, and I make whatever I need to make to do my job with, you know.
After my conversation with Ernie, I wanted to hear Kevin's perspective on the creativity and craftsmanship that defines his father's work.
Kevin, this is such a unique place. Talk a little bit about your dad's love of fabrication and working with his hands. Where did that all come from?
Well, ever since I grew up, my earliest memories, my dad was always in the backyard in the shop. If you wanted to find him, he was back in the shop. We had very limited resources, and we didn't have any money. So we just built everything. He would take whatever scrap steel he could, and he'd build pretty incredible things. He started with motorcycles and then dune buggies, and then he started building the dwarf cruisers, the street legal ones. He built one and started it in 1988 and finished it in 1991. And then he right away started another one and then built another and another. And here we are, 8 of those cars later that are street legal. He just kept building them until he finished his last one a year and a half ago. It's evolved into, I think we're about the #2 car museum in Arizona at this point.
Man, metal, and a whole lot of fabrication, Ernie's legacy is one built by hand. A true visionary with a talent for shaping steel, the Dwarf Car Museum stands as a showcase of pure craftsmanship and wild imagination being carried forward by family. Even after a full day, I'd love to stay a little longer around these charming customs.
But the road is calling, and I've got to continue my journey, making my way up into the mountains where some ghostly adventures await. After a few hours drive north, I'm now on Mingus Mountain, passing mining operations that date back to the late 1800s, where millions of dollars of copper ore was pulled out of the earth. And I'm headed to Don Robertson's Gold King Mine, a 3-generation collection full of nothing but rusty gold. Don started collecting in 1979 before opening the doors to his one-of-a-kind museum in 1982, and he ran it up until his passing in 2016, at which point his daughter Jeannie and grandson Garrett, who are already involved with day-to-day operations, they took things over, and they're carrying on Don's legacy to this day. And I'm gonna meet up with them to find out more about Don and the history of the Gold King Mine.
After brief introductions with Jeannie and Garrett, I followed him into the hills for a full tour of the Gold King Mine.
So Garrett, take me back. What's the origins of the ground that we're standing on?
Okay, so this is a suburb of Jerome. Jerome is known for its mining. So a different investor came up here looking to prospect his own ore. Came up here in the late 1800s, put in 6 exploration shafts. They did find copper, but not in the significant amount that they needed to stay above float, and they were battling the aquifer. So essentially this place closed down, became desolate and a ghost town. And so my grandpa came up in '79. He was looking for territory that had mining history, and he wanted 4 seasons of weather and enough territory so that he could disperse his collection. So he had already been accumulating a pretty good amount of mining equipment, old trucks. Got to a point where he thought he could maybe charge $2 a person and display some of these artifacts, and opened up in 1982. And so he ran the course of that until 2016, and that's when we took over. All right, so here we are. This is the oldest structure that we have on site. It's an old 2-story building, conflicting stories, brothel, boarding house, but essentially it was probably used as both. And the miners would stay here. So this is pretty cool. We want to restore this building. We want to bring it back so that people can come tour it. But this is basically the original structure that was here when Don took this over in this plot, and then added to it with a lot of the buildings that he built, and then also bringing in buildings that were still from the same circa, but just not exactly from this spot.
So when a lot of the miners and those that were up here decided that they weren't going to continue to mine after the accident, they left, and a lot of the structures either they took with them or just became dilapidated.
Yes.
Which is why this one is the sole remaining intact from that era.
Yeah, so he got up here, there was the original shafts, this building, everything else was just desolate, gone. There was a little old lady named Petra that came up in 1907, and she lived here for about 20 years. So she had to provide her own source of heat, and she was a pioneer at the heart of it.
After getting the background from Garrett, I wanted to take a close look at the assortment of trucks, machinery, and hard-working rigs scattered around the mine.
It's wild to think that the canyons around me would have been carved out by equipment just like this power shovel, made in Detroit in the 1920s. Can you imagine this thing at full bore with these exposed gears and chains, banging and clanging away, carving out rock and earth? Just truly incredible. Cars from the 40s and 50s had such a unique style, and so did their haulers. This classic big rig is such a neat piece of the past. Another one, this international tanker. Just another vehicle coming from that era when even hard-working commercial vehicles had their own sense of design.
All right, so Matt, I was mentioning to you earlier about if he told Don not to do it or that he shouldn't, this is a perfect example about what I was talking about. So this is Big Bertha. This is a backup generator that came out of Baghdad, Arizona. It's from the 1930s. It's every bit of 20 tons. It had come up on auction, so Don put it on the back of a flatbed truck and brought it up here, and I'm gonna show you how it runs. America! Yeah, Matt, so it's pretty crazy to think that this whole operation stemmed just off of this right here, some copper ore. And now we're just trying to keep history alive.
Well, you're doing an excellent job, Garrett. Thanks for having me out.
You're welcome, Matt.
Life in these dry, dusty canyons was hard, hot, and required untold amounts of grit and stamina. And the Gold King mine spotlights the people and the tools and equipment they use that forged ahead to make it all work. And I know there's many more experiences just like this waiting for me to explore in the deserts of Arizona on my next trip back. Until then, I'm on the move.